Good morning. She's on the edge of sleep, so we'll see how this goes. Morning, Mina. We shall see. Nothing is going. Oh, Mary, I'm sorry to hear that. Wait, what happened? That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good at all. We are out of milk, so I'm gonna have to work around that today, which is interesting. I'll get it later, of course. Yes, good morning. Is everyone glad that it's Friday? Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Morning, Anya. Morning, Ray. Good morning. Birthday is tomorrow. People call me today and said they came to her cake. Why? Oh, that's exciting, Isabella. Did it go well? Well, let me grab my glasses real quick. See how I'm getting good at pre-prepping myself so that we don't waste time with me having to set everything up. The tripod's set up, the book is there, the glasses are on, the baby's asleep. Hey! Well, hopefully you'll be able to catch up later, Amanda. Hopefully. We don't know what we're going to hear about today, but we're back in the fairy tale world, you know. Few weeks of coffee in the middle. It's true. She did. She got a few long weeks of coffee in the middle. They were sparse. Good morning, Nikki. That's good, Isabella. Hopefully it makes you feel better. I think it will. I hope it does. Hopefully. Not my normal ratios, but we'll see how it tastes if we don't have milk. Oh well. Yeah, I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right, Isabella? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. What's going on here in this hair? There we go. It's a little better. Not a lot better, but a little better. I use half and half already, but I don't usually use only half and half. I usually mix it. But we'll see, you know, how it goes. But my hair's doing it. It's just having its own time. It's just having its own time. We're rocking the baby, trying to keep her asleep. Shh, 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 shh. In case you're wondering why my shirt is riding up over here, it's because she has her hand inside my shirt, and I don't dare take it out in fear of waking her up. So if she wants emotional support skin from mommy, then the shirt's gonna ride up, and it is what it is. Half and half and chalk 0 is a winning combo. Yes. Big win. We don't dare wake her up. No, no, no. Her teacher calls and wanted her to pull out of the advanced reading class when I know she can do it. Did they say why? That's weird. Oh yeah, it's totally calming. That's why I don't even... Oop. See, it doesn't froth as much when there's no milk. I just purchased a cup holder that fits in your... That's exciting. That's mad exciting, Anya. I wish I had a cup holder that just like fit into my existence to just like follow me around like that. Okay, we are here. We are ready because the test said she's reading 3rd grade. And what grade is she in? Delicious. She's in 6th grade. Did she just not test well? Some kids just don't test well, and that could be what it is, right? It could be a you know, an issue with testing. I didn't think of it that way. An arm attachment with a couple of... Yeah, it's super creepy. Super creepy on you. I don't like that at all. Okay. Let's put this down here. There we go. Okay. And now we will sit and hope the baby doesn't wake up while I put you guys on the tripod. There we go. Okay. You're on the tripod. I am sitting. The book is here. It would be perfect for Halloween. Get back to the drawing board. Yeah, literally. But she's right. It would be great for Halloween. Okay. Let's get you guys right here so I can see and read. Okay. She has been sleeping for 10 minutes and 53 seconds as of right now. I can see the timer at the top of the screen in case you're wondering why I was so specific. I have an app that times her stuff and it just sits there at the top. Sorry, I have the hiccups. Okay. Okay. We're okay. We survived that. No. Okay, so we were in the middle of chapter 9, The Gathering in the Woods, when we had to stop yesterday, but we got through so much yesterday we felt like we had done, a good amount anyway. So, in case you don't remember yesterday, the kids watched a gathering of what looked to be outcasts in the dwarf forest, and one of them turned out to be Froggy. At the end of the last book, Froggy was turned back into a prince, so we're all confused about why Froggy is a frog. Because last time we saw him, he was a human. So let's dive in and see what happened to Froggy. You sank a house? Froggy asked, dumbfounded. Oh no. Normally I would question such a possibility, but with you two, I don't know. It was an accident, Alex said. I activated another one of Grandma's portals. Hey, Jen, we're literally one sentence in, so you missed basically nothing. Your technique really needs work, Connor said out of the side of his mouth, and Froggy looked around at the forest. They could tell that knowing they had snuck into the fairy tale world made him feel uneasy. Children, really, you shouldn't be here, he said. These are very dangerous times. An evil enchantress is at large. Esmea, Alex said. We know about her. She kidnapped our mom. What? Froggy said. Oh, I'm so sorry. Not as sorry as we are, Connor said. And our grandma's practically imprisoning us to try to stop us from coming here. Well, clearly that worked, Froggy said with an eye roll. Has she met you two? Are you two even capable of sitting still? Thank you, Connor said, glad for the validation. Wait, Alex said, noticing something for the first time. Froggy, you're a frog again. Oh, yeah, you are, Connor said. What gives? Despite his transformation back into Prince Charlie, the long-lost charming prince, Alex and Connor still imagined him as a frog whenever they thought of him, so they had to remind themselves that this wasn't his natural form. I'm undercover, Froggy said. Your grandmother transformed me back into a frog so that I keep watch over the animals and the criminals living in the dwarf forest during this crisis. We figured that they would trust me more as an amphibian. Some of them even remember me from when I was living here. Are they really going to join the Enchantress, though? Alex asked. Oh, I doubt it, Froggy said. These are a bunch of crooks trying to make the situation work for them. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but still, the Happily Ever After Assembly wants to keep an eye on them just in case that changes. Froggy folded his arms and looked between the twins. I'm sure they'd be much more interested in knowing what you two are up to. Froggy, you can't tell anyone that we're here, okay? Connor said. They'll send us back. We just can't be stuck at home, not knowing our mom is in danger, Alex said, and they both looked at him with large, pleading eyes. Children, you know I care about you deeply, but Froggy started but was interrupted. We are not children, Connor shouted. Everyone keeps calling us that, and honestly, I'm sick of it. We shouldn't have to prove ourselves after everything we've already been through. It's not like we're a couple of irresponsible kids sneaking into a party. We're two young adults trying to save our mother's life. You can tell our grandma if you have to, Alex said. She can lock us up at home all she wants, but we're still going to keep finding ways to get back here until our mom is safe. We have to find her, Froggy, Connor said. We already lost our dad. We can't lose our mom, too. We're not going to sleep until we save her. Froggy hopelessly looked back and forth between the twins with his big, glossy eyes. They had put him between a rock and a hard place. Right. First things first, Froggy said. We need to get out of the dwarf forest before anything else sees you. Let's get somewhere safe, and we'll discuss this further. Alex and Connor nodded, but they already knew there wouldn't be anything to discuss. His loyalty to them was much stronger than it was to their grandmother. He was their friend before he was her subject. Froggy placed his cloak over the twins and led them safely through the forest. Alex and Connor were so relieved to have miraculously made contact with an ally so soon, but they knew the worst was yet to come in the uncertain days ahead. Dun dun dun. We were really close to the end of that chapter yesterday. Next chapter is called Chapter 10, Rumpelstiltskin's Debt. But I need a sip of coffee first because I can't live without it, and in between chapters feels like a good time to do that. So I'm gonna smooth you over here since she turned her head, and that way I don't have to do so much covering. Oh, there's a hot cup. Oh, that's a hot cup. Connor always stands on business. It's very hot, but very delicious. Ah, so good. Okay, here we go. Chapter 10, Rumpelstiltskin's Debt. Pinocchio Prison was home to the most dangerous criminals in all the kingdoms. It was a tall, dark fortress that sat at the center of a long peninsula and curved around Mermaid Bay in the southern part of the Eastern Kingdom. It was perched at the top of a high and rocky cliff with sharp spikes pointing inward and outward at every window, so there was no possible way to escape or gain unauthorized entry. Enchanted wooden soldiers patrolled the narrow stone halls, keeping watch on the lawbreakers behind bars. The majority of those locked away here were the typical sheep-stealing ogres, kidnapping witches, man-eating animals that had been caught before they fled into the dwarf forest. The prison was also the home to a great mystery. During the 100-year sleeping curse of the Eastern Kingdom, the prison had been the only place in that kingdom that had been spared. All the soldiers and the inmates inside strangely remained conscious, while the rest of the country slumbered. More recently, the mystery had developed when the prison also became the only place in the kingdom not covered in the Enchantress's demonic thorn bushes and vines. Whether it was a fluke or a miracle was the question. Many assumed the prison was just too far removed to be affected by the curse. However, unbeknownst to all the soldiers and the inmates inside, the prison's exclusion from the kingdom's greatest woes was due to a high-profile prisoner who resided on the 13th floor. Rumpelstiltskin was serving his 127th year behind bars. He was a very small man with large baggy eyes and a button nose, short hair that clung to his head like a helmet. He wore a large collared shirt, tight pants on his tiny legs, and pointed red shoes that jingled when he walked. After his infamous failed attempt to take the firstborn of the Eastern Kingdom's former queen, Rumpelstiltskin went into hiding. But after a few years of being at large, the small man couldn't live with the guilt of what he had almost done. So 127 years ago, he decided to turn himself in
and he had lived in Pinocchio prison ever since. Rumpelstiltskin had a tiny chamber all to himself. He had two barred windows, one on the heavy door of his cell and the other on the wall facing Mermaid Bay. Both were too high for him to see out unless he jumped, so the dark stones of his chamber floor and walls were all he had to look at every day. His life had simplified greatly while he was in prison. He slept on a large stack of hay in the corner and ate on a tiny table pushed to the side with only one spoon and a bowl in his possession. Although Rumpelstiltskin had many magical capabilities, he had decided to give them up when he went to prison, fearing that magic would only lead him to trouble. He kept his quarters as simple as possible. The first decade or so of imprisonment was incredibly lonely for the little man, but lucky for him, an unexpected roommate eventually moved in. One day, a strong ocean breeze blew a seed into his chamber, and a week later, a small daisy began to grow in between two rocks of the stone floor. Rumpelstiltskin was amazed that such a thing could even happen. How could something so pleasant grow in such a miserable place? Of all the locations in the world, why did it decide to land here? He pondered the question for a great while, glad of something to distract him from his solitude and shame. He ultimately decided that the flower must have needed a friend as much as he did, and its presence in his cell had been purposeful. He took great care of the flower, impressively keeping it alive the entire time that he had been in the prison. He shared his water with the daisy, he told it stories, and when it fell ill, he would stand up on his tiptoes by the window with his spoon and reflect sunlight toward it until it gained its strength again. To the average person, having a flower as a companion might seem a little odd, but for Rumpelstiltskin it was the best friend he had ever had. The flower never mocked him for the clothes he wore like others had in the past. The flower never judged him for wanting the most out of life. The flower never used him for political gain. The flower never condemned him for the mistakes he made the years before. The flower was only capable of doing one thing: sharing its beauty. In a way, life in prison had been the best thing that ever happened to Rumpelstiltskin, giving him the most meaningful relationship that he had ever had. However, his self-surrender had only been a way for him to clear his conscience. It was also a way for him to protect himself from the alliances that he had made in the past. And unfortunately, after he had spent so long hiding from his past eventually found him. It was just before sunset when thunderous noise was heard outside the prison. It was an intense combination of snapping, crunching, and popping that became louder and louder by the second. The prison began to shake. His bowl and spoon rattled on his table. Whatever it was getting closer. Rumpelstiltskin jumped up and down at his window, trying to see what was causing the commotion. What he saw was the most terrifying sight that he had seen in years, and like an enormous earthly stampede, a tsunami of angry thorn bushes and vines traveled across the land, growing in the prison's direction. "Oh no," Rumpelstiltskin gasped, and he clasped his hands around his mouth and looked around his cell. There was only one person capable of such magic, and for 127 years, he knew she was finally coming for him. The wooden soldiers rushed through the halls in a panic. "Thorn bushes and vines are headed for the prison," one of them shouted. "Prepare for an attack," another yelled. Rumpelstiltskin looked down at the daisy. It was quivering. "Oh, there, little flower," he said, and gently stroked one of its leaves. "Everything is going to be all right. I'm going to hide you." He quickly retrieved his bowl off of the table and covered his friend with it. The prison was hit by the plants, and the impact made the whole fortress sway. The thorn bushes and vines crawled up the sides of the structure, wrapping around it like an army of serpents until all the windows were covered and the prison went dim inside. After a few quiet moments, a series of soft rumbles pulsed through the prison like a giant heartbeat. Each rumble was stronger than the next and came from several floors below Rumpelstiltskin's cell. Something was slowly making its way higher and higher through the prison. Rumpelstiltskin could hear all the wooden soldiers from above rushing down to fight off whatever was intruding below. The clanking of their weapons echoed as they tried fighting it off, but they were definitely fighting off more than just plants. Finally, Rumpelstiltskin heard the battle reach the 13th floor. He was too scared to move. He smelled things burning, and smoke started to flow into his cell from under his cell door. Each soldier's scream was followed by a loud thud as their wooden bodies hit the floor one by one. Once all the soldiers were gone, a pair of soft footsteps came down the hall and stopped at Rumpelstiltskin's cell door. He was trembling, afraid that these were his last moments alive. A bright flash of violet light blasted through the cell door and blew it to smithereens. Rumpelstiltskin braced himself and was pelted by the debris. Once the smoke from the blast cleared, he finally saw who had been causing all the chaos. Standing in the doorway of his cell was a tall and beautiful woman. She had long magenta hair that floated and rippled above her like slow-moving flames. Her eyes were violet, with long feathered eyelashes like moth's antennae. She wore a long purple gown with matching gloves and a high collar. A ghostly cape flowed around her, and through the hall was a thick sheet of smoke. "Esmea?" Rumpelstiltskin said in horror. The enchantress's bright red lips curved into a smirk. "Hello, Rumpy," Esmea said in her playful and airy voice. "Oh, how I've missed you." Esmea stepped into Rumpelstiltskin's cell and examined the small chamber. Vines and thorn bushes followed her, growing all around the walls of the cell, covering the inside of the prison as she traveled through it. "Oh, I love what you've done with the place," Esmea said sarcastically, passing the stack of hay that he used as a bed. "It doesn't fit a man of your exquisite taste, though, does it? I can't imagine why you would abandon me to spend 13 decades here." Rumpelstiltskin remained very still, knowing it wasn't wise to make sudden movements around dangerous creatures. "Have you come to kill me?" he said with a quivering jaw. The enchantress forced out a theatrical laugh that did little to comfort him. "Oh, why would I be here? To kill one of my oldest friends," she said with a menacing smile. "Besides, if I wanted you dead, I would have had the ogres kill you ages ago." Her smile faded, and her violet eyes glared down at him. "Why else do you think I've spared you from all the curses that I cast over the kingdom so far?" Rumpelstiltskin had always wondered if the exceptions were because of him. "If you aren't going to kill me, then what brings you here?" he asked, trembling even more. He was convinced that she must have a fate worse than death planned for him. "Oh, look at you, Rumpy. You're just as helpless as the day I found you," Esmea said pityingly. "When we met, you were just another miserable dwarf working the mines, but I knew that you and I were kindred spirits. We both wanted more than what the world was offering us, and we were both ostracized because of it." "I never meant to anger you," Rumpelstiltskin said, and he lowered his head. I had to turn myself in. I couldn't live with what I had done." "Or what you failed to do, that is," Esmea said. "But it's okay. It's all forgiven." Rumpelstiltskin knew her too well to believe her. Esmea had something up her sleeve. She always did. "What do you want from me?" he asked, and Esmea went to the window, the vines and thorn bushes covering the outside, and they parted so that she could see a view of the bay. "Like it or not, we made a deal," she said. "I've come back so that you can finally fulfill your end of the bargain. I saved you from a melancholy life in the mines. I made you my apprentice. I taught you magic. And all I ever asked in exchange was for your assistance." "You never said I was going to have to kidnap a child," Rumpelstiltskin said, "and a princess, no less." "I made it incredibly easy for you," Esmea said sharply, her tone growing more angry. "I bewitched the king into thinking that he needed a wife who could spin hay into gold. I chose the village girl he ordered to do so. I planned the whole negotiation between the two of you. All you had to do was take the child that was owed to you." "You wanted me to do your dirty work," Rumpelstiltskin peeped. You wanted my name to be tarnished if anything went wrong." "Of course I did," she said unapologetically. "I was still in the happily ever after assembly at the time. I couldn't get caught stealing an infant princess. As far as the fairies knew, I was still one of them." "As far as I knew, you were still one of them too," Rumpelstiltskin said. "I thought I was going to be the apprentice of a great fairy, not an enchantress who was secretly plotting to take over the world." Esmea looked delighted, remembering this deception. "Yes, everyone was surprised," she said. "Of course, that all changed when the rest of the fairies found out that you were working for me, and I wasn't invited to the child's christening. I lost my temper and cursed the whole kingdom to die. They would have too if the fairy godmother hadn't converted my curse into a pathetic sleeping curse. The enchantress closed her eyes and massaged the sides of her head. Oh, and since then, Sleeping Beauty has been my own personal nightmare, she said. You should have seen her face when I attacked her in the forest, though. There she was, the martyred queen, trembling with fear. Honestly, it was priceless. Esmea smiled to herself and let out a chuckle. You wanted me to kidnap her when she was a baby, and then you cursed her for 100 years, and now you cover her kingdom in vines and thorns? Rumpelstiltskin said. Well, why do you hate Queen Sleeping Beauty so much? Esmea glanced at him sideways as she contemplated her honest answer, and then the answer she would give him. Whatever she said, there was always much more that she wasn't saying. Oh, no. That's where everyone gets it wrong, Esmea said. I'll admit that I do take great satisfaction in seeing the Eastern Kingdom in a state of turmoil. My reputation was bruised when my fatal spell was reduced to an extensive nap. So, there is an element of revenge that I do take great pleasure in, yes, but the reason that I've attacked the Eastern Kingdom has nothing to do with Queen Sleeping Beauty. Then why are you causing all this chaos? Rumpelstiltskin asked nervously, looking at the vines and the thorn bushes outside. Oh, well, everything has a purpose, Esmea said with a proud and sinister gleam in her eyes. It's been so long since my last public appearance, the world thought I was dead. I needed to show them that I was back and more powerful than ever. And when better than on the day that they were celebrating the end of the last curse? Oh, it's deliciously evil of me, isn't it? Esmea closed her eyes and a wide smile grew on her face. What part of our bargain do you want me to fulfill? Rumpelstiltskin asked. Surely you don't want me to kidnap Queen Sleeping Beauty now? Oh, no. It was never Sleeping Beauty that I was after, Esmea said, and angrily paced around the chamber. Sleeping Beauty this, Sleeping Beauty that. She wouldn't even have that ridiculous name if it weren't for me. This puzzled Rumpelstiltskin even more. Then what is it you were after? He asked. I was after a child, Esmea confessed. A child of royal blood specifically. It's one of the many things I needed to complete. A special project I've been working on. A special project? He asked. You mean taking over the world, I assume. That's what you've always wanted, isn't it? And Esmea looked him straight in the eye. Yes, something like that, she said. And it's a lot harder than it looks. Shortly before I met you, I figured out a way to do it. It's an enchantment of sorts. It's a very complex formula that requires certain properties to be claimed and special assets to obtain. Once I manage to gather all of them together, not even the fairy godmother herself will be able to stop me. It's been more than a century since I last saw you. Oops, sorry. Darn it, I did so good. Wrong voice. I got all that way without messing up, and here we are at the end, and I messed up the voice. It's been more than a century since I last saw you, Rumpelstiltskin said. Why have you decided to strike now after all this time? Esmea waved her hand, and the stones on the floor rose to make a large chair. You haven't been around, Rumpy, Esmea said, and took a seat. While you've been locked away, I've had quite the century. It's not as if I've been lying around this whole time. No, I've been betrayed, I've been poisoned, and I've come back from the verge of death stronger and more powerful than ever. Poisoned? Rumpelstiltskin asked. But by whom? Evely, Esmea said, the name as if it were a disease. Evely? Rumpelstiltskin said. Who is that? She was supposed to be my solution, Esmea said. However, she ended up being my greatest disappointment. She waved her hand, and the stones on the floor formed a stool for Rumpelstiltskin to sit on. It's a long story, so have a seat, Esmea ordered, and Rumpelstiltskin didn't argue. After I cursed the Eastern Kingdom, I went into hiding, Esmea explained. I may have been the most powerful fairy in the world, but I was no match for all the other fairies put together. I knew that I couldn't strike again until I was further along with my project, until I was past the point of no return, you see. So I plotted in secret, keeping a watchful eye on all the kingdoms for the pieces that I needed to continue my work. I assembled a quaint little castle in the northeastern kingdom where no one would find me, and I plotted out what my next move would be. But it required many elements outside my reach, and I knew I would have to be patient. I brought many troubled souls into the castle, hoping to produce the proper apprentice, but they all failed me, each being a bigger disappointment than the last. Many years later, the charming kingdom, or when King Chester was just a prince, the palace had an unexpected visitor one night. A young maiden banged on the palace door seeking shelter from a horrible rainstorm. Chester instantly fell in love with her and asked his parents for permission to propose. Being the old-fashioned people the king and queen were, Chester's parents said he could only marry the maiden if she proved she was of royal blood. So the prince devised a plan to test the maiden's royal status. He made her a bed in the guest room, with a chamber stacked with a dozen mattresses, and placed a pea on the very bottom, convincing his parents that only a royal would feel an imperfection like that through so many mattresses. The next morning the maiden complained about a restless night, and Chester was certain that he had found his future wife. He asked for the maiden's hand in marriage, but she refused his proposal. You see, the maiden had a secret. She had tossed and turned all night in discomfort because she was pregnant, not because she was a princess. The maiden had been a simple peasant runaway, embarrassed to be with child out of wedlock. She disappeared from the palace as quickly as she came, and Prince Chester never saw her again. Naturally, when I heard about this so-called pregnant princess on the run, I was intrigued, knowing that I did need a royal child. So I tracked her down in the forest, where she was living on her own in a cave. To my delight, she was very much with child, and I discovered her there and made her an offer that she couldn't refuse. In exchange for her child, I would give her a life of riches and luxury beyond her wildest dreams, you know, the whole usual thing. And she agreed, and the deal was made. Unfortunately, she backed out of our agreement shortly before giving birth to the child. She ran to a neighboring village and died giving birth to the little girl, who the villagers named Evely. I soon discovered that the maiden hadn't been royal, and Evely couldn't be the child that I needed, so I let the villagers raise her, while I conceived another plan to get use out of Evely after all. I was going to train her to seduce and marry Prince White of the Northern Kingdom. Together they would produce an heir, and I would finally have a child of royal blood that I desired. Unfortunately, when I returned for Evely in her adolescence, she had fallen madly in love with another one of the village boys, a pathetic aspiring poet named Mira. I took Evely to my castle in the northeast and began training her, but all she did was cry and whine every day and night about how much she missed Mira. So I brought the boy to her, and I imprisoned him with her inside a magic mirror. I thought it had been a kind gesture on my part, but it only caused Evely to grow more spiteful. She conducted a plan of her own against me, and she broke into my room of potions and concocted a poison so strong that even a few drops, when they touched the ground outside her window, all the trees and plants for miles were killed. Evely laced a small dagger with the poison, and she stabbed me with it. The poison almost killed me, honestly. I shriveled down to the state of a dying human. I lost all my power, all my beauty, and all my hope for plans for the future. And as I ran far away as I could, fearing Evely would try to finish me off, the stupid girl was so consumed with trying to free Mira that she forgot all about me. An old witch named Hagatha found me in the woods, barely alive. She recognized me and the effects of the poison and brought me to a small hut in the dwarf forest, and she nursed me back to health. I became her apprentice, but she treated me horribly, taking advantage of the person I once was. She sent me out on the most gruesome errands and forced me to sleep outside like an animal. Ironically, the poison is also what saved me. The happily ever after assembly had been looking for me since I cursed the Eastern Kingdom, but they didn't recognize me in my frail state, and they decided I was dead. But one day, a few decades later, Hagatha and I were collecting plants from the thornbush pit that she had planted around her hut. She was forcing me to do all the work, and my hands were scraped and scratched from all the thorns. I remember feeling more angry than I had ever felt in my life. I was furious that I, a woman who had once been more powerful than anyone else in the world, had become a witch's slave. And with this anger, I felt something different. Suddenly, I felt alive again, like a candle that had been relit inside of me. After many long years, my body had finally recovered from the effects of the poison, and my powers had come back. It's true what they say. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I am living proof of that. It was more powerful than ever before. My powers were different, too. My magic can always come from a happily ever after source, coming from a life among fairies. That's why every curse I created could be broken with a kiss or a token of affection, but no, not anymore. This time my magic had no limits. I pushed Hagatha into the pit and cursed the vines and the thorn bushes to trap anything that came close to it, as Mia confessed. You pushed her into the pit? Rumpelstiltskin asked. All this time that's been your magic festering in that godless place? Indeed. the enchantress said with a boastful shrug. Believe me, I wanted to take credit for it, but I still had work to do before I went public again. I returned to the castle and collected all my belongings, ready to compete and complete what I had started so long ago. But I knew that I would have to continue being patient. The kingdoms were experiencing a golden age. Cinderella and Prince Charming were married, Sleeping Beauty had awoken, Snow White was crowned queen. I knew that if I waited until the right moment, my return would have a much bigger impact, and now it has. Rumpelstiltskin feared what her newfound strength would mean for the future of the kingdoms. I never understood you, he said. You used to be so admired and so loved by the whole world. Why wasn't that enough? When did it all go wrong? The enchantress looked to the floor with a snide expression. Oh, people only love you as long as they're getting something out of you. But the minute you say something they don't want to hear or something they don't want to see, the admiration drains from their hearts. But why this obsession with power? Rumpelstiltskin asked as cautiously as possible. Why do you need the world, Esmea? Esmea let out a long sigh. Oh, I have my reasons, she said sharply, and quite frankly, I don't give a damn if you or anyone else understands. A tension grew in the room, but it wasn't between Esmea and Rumpelstiltskin. It was between Esmea and the world. But where do I fit into it? Rumpelstiltskin asked. If you're so powerful now, why do you even need me? Well, that's simple, Esmea said. Out of all my apprentices over the years, you've been the most loyal to me, Rumpy. You actually started what I asked you to do, and now I'm going to let you finish it. Besides, it'll be nice to have a friend around once I take over things. They exchanged a weighty glance, both aware that this was nothing close to a friendship. There's another child, isn't there? Rumpelstiltskin asked with a heavy heart, already knowing the answer. You want me to kidnap another child? Precisely, the enchantress said, and Rumpelstiltskin lowered his head and closed his eyes. He knew that he wouldn't have a choice this time. Refusal would mean death. Well, that's enough catching up for one day, I think, Esmea said, and glided toward the door with a newfound spring in her step. Come along, Rumpy, there's much work to be done. I've waited almost 2 centuries for this, so as you can imagine, I've grown quite impatient. The stones sank back into the ground, and Rumpelstiltskin fell onto his behind. Where are we going? He asked. Agatha's old hut, the enchantress said. It's where I've been spending most of my time since my castle was destroyed years ago. You see, you should see what I've done with the place. A little magic goes a really long way in the dwarf forest. Rumpelstiltskin nostalgically looked around his tiny cell. He had never felt it seem so much like home until he was being forced to leave it. I just need to say goodbye, Rumpelstiltskin said sadly. Esmea raised an eyebrow, not knowing who on earth he was talking about. Perhaps prison had been harder on her small friend than she had imagined. Rumpelstiltskin got to the floor and took the bowl off the daisy. I have to go now, he said, fighting back tears. Please, no, don't look at me like that. You'll be all right. And he lightly stroked one of its white petals. Goodbye, little flower. Please take care of yourself. And Rumpelstiltskin then stood and walked through the doorway, leaving his cell for the first time in 127 years. But he stepped into a world even harsher than imprisonment. Esmea lingered in the doorway, glaring down at the flower. She couldn't believe that something so small and inferior could be so important, so protected, or so loved. It ignited a fire inside of her. The enchantress waved a hand in its direction, and the daisy withered away, crumbling into bits of nothing. A smile then appeared on her face, so satisfied to destroy something even so small. Oh. Why? Why you gotta kill the flower? What did the flower do to you? So heartbreaking. Poor Rumpelstiltskin. His only friend is a flower, and she withered it to nothingness. Just awful. She's still asleep, so we can keep going. It's just terrible. Too cruel. Too cruel. Like, what's Esmea's problem, you guys? Alright. Oh. Did I speak too soon? Are you awake? Hello? Are you awake or asleep? Do you want to read a chapter on your mat? I'm going to go over there. Hi. Good morning, beautiful. What happened to quitting while you're ahead? Yeah, no, seriously. Seriously. In Esmia's case, that would definitely be. Do you want to go to your mat and do a little reading over there? Yeah? Okay, we can do that. We can go read another chapter over there. It's okay. Hi. Good morning, baby angel. Good morning, my baby angel. Do you feel so good now that you had a nice nap? Does your brain feel happy? Happy brain. Yay! Hi. You're okay. Mommy's right. No, honey. Mommy's right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. Yeah, see, Mommy? Mommy's right here. I'm just getting our friends and my coffee. Both important. We're going to send them on a Tower of Terror ride. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, boom. Okay. Hi. Good morning. Do you feel so good? Does your brain feel so good? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's read the next chapter. What do you think, my sweet angel? I think you're going to like this one. I think you like the voices in this next chapter. The next chapter is called Chapter 11, The Queen and the Frog. The Queen and the Frog. It was the final moments before dawn, and the stars were slowly fading away as the sky began to brighten. Froggy and the twins had been traveling through the dwarf forest for the majority of the night, covering ground as quickly and quietly as possible. We do love happy naps, right? I agree. Even after all they had been through together, the twins had never seen Froggy so tense. He constantly watched the path ahead and glanced behind every few steps, making sure that they weren't being followed. You seem really stressed, dude, Connor said, looking up at his green friend. These times are definitely worthy of concern, Froggy said. By the way, what is a dude? Connor shrugged. I mean, it's just lingo from our world. It's nothing important, he said. Sorry, I forgot where I was for a second. And Alex moved closer to Froggy as they walked, keen to have a more serious conversation. How bad is it really? She asked. We've only heard from those animals in the forest and Mother Goose, so what's your take on it? You can play with this, just be really careful, okay? Don't hit yourself in the face with it, yeah? Froggy sighed. Well, I can't recall a time that's been so troubling, he said. Even when the evil queen was at large, people went on with their lives. Now that the enchantress is back, it's as if the world has just stopped. Everyone stays indoors, too afraid to come outside until the happily ever after assembly can do something about it. Well, and? Have they done anything? Connor asked. Have they figured out any way to stop her? No, I'm afraid not, Froggy said. They did try unenchanting the plants that cover the Eastern Kingdom, but honestly it was no use. The magic is just too strong. Esmia has grown more powerful than anyone ever thought possible. Besides covering the Eastern Kingdom in plants, has the enchantress attacked anything else? Alex asked. No, that's all for now, Froggy said, which means she's likely to strike again at any moment. Why is everyone calling it the Eastern Kingdom now? Connor asked. Did I miss something? What happened to the Sleeping Kingdom? Because the kingdom's finally been restored to its former glory before the Sleeping Curse, Froggy explained. Queen Sleeping Beauty wanted to celebrate the kingdom's restoration by reclaiming the former title. They were having a huge celebration on the night the enchantress attacked. Those poor people, they weren't even expecting it. I wonder if my rubber band trick actually helped, Connor said to himself. Why has Esmia covered the kingdom in plants of all things? Alex asked. If the happily ever after assembly can't stop her magic anymore, why not just curse Sleeping Beauty to die again? Like everyone else in the fairy tale world, Froggy could only make guesses. Symbolism, I'm assuming, Froggy said, and then he rubbed his tired eyes. During the Sleeping Curse, the entire kingdom was covered in thorn bushes and vines because no one was taking care of the grounds. I'm sure Esmia's taking great pleasure in seeing all the hard work go to waste by covering it all over again. She's getting more use out of hostages than casualties. Making people suffer is crueler than killing them, if you ask me anyway. Alex and Connor were a tiny bit relieved to hear this. If those hostages were what the enchantress was collecting, then maybe their mom's life wasn't really in jeopardy. They just hoped she wasn't suffering. And now the plants are keeping people prisoner there, just like the thorn bush pit? Alex said to herself, trying to make sense of it all. Exactly, Froggy said, although no one's been able to make a connection between the two. Well, what about Queen Sleeping Beauty and King Chase? Are they all right? Alex asked. King Chase is still stuck in the Eastern Kingdom as far as anyone knows, Froggy said, and Queen Sleeping Beauty, well, she barely made it out. She was attacked while making a run for the border, and all of her soldiers were killed, but she did survive, thankfully. The soldiers from the Charming Kingdom found her in the forest, and they brought her back to the Charming Palace. she's just like, sorry. Hi. Hello. I didn't mean to distract you. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I didn't mean to distract you from learning to crawl. That's my bad. Sorry about it, kiddo. My mistake. Go back to what you were doing. Learn to crawl. I won't bother you anymore. When I said so, Peach just like did one of those. Sorry. Enjoy. Have fun. No. Don't let me bother you. That's horrible, Alex said with a sigh, even though she took our mom. After what we learned about the evil queen, I'm just trying to come up with a reason that the enchantress might be misunderstood too, but really it's difficult. Connor grunted. Huh, not for me, he said. I don't care what her excuse is. If she hurts Mom in any way, I'm going to make sure that's the last thing she ever does. And the sun started to rise and the land around them became more visible. In the distance, the twins were taken aback to see a familiar wall made of gray brick that had stretched across the entire horizon. Isn't that the wall surrounding Red Riding Hood Kingdom? Alex asked. Oh, yeah, Connor said, recognizing it too. Wait, why are we headed over there? I thought you were taking us back to your place, Froggy. I am, Froggy assured. What happened to your hole in the ground? Connor asked. I moved, Froggy said. I live in the castle now with Queen Red. Froggy blushed a shade of dark green and went silent. Alex and Connor looked at each other like, did you just hear that? Written all over their faces. Froggy walked ahead of them, crossing through the western gate of the Red Riding Hood Kingdom's famous wall. Good morning, fellas, Froggy said with a nod to the guards at the morning gate. Morning, sir, they said back, and they bowed slightly as he walked past them. You came on my FYP. You said I had to subscribe to watch. I think that might be like a fake thing by TikTok saying like you can subscribe, because I don't have any subscriptions on TikTok, so that's really weird. There's no subscriptions for my lives on here, Dawn, so that's that might be like a trick to try to get you to give money to TikTok, but don't fall for it. My lives are always open here on TikTok, so just if they do that, just ignore it and like refresh the page or something, because I've never locked a live here, so don't worry about that. Book club will always be open to everyone as long as I am able and allowed to do it here. Yeah. And if TikTok causes problems, we'll go over to YouTube, I guess, you know. Good job! You got up on your hands and knees all on your own. That was so good. You're so strong. You're so strong and smart. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud. Oh, you want your Dragons Make Great Friends book? Here, you can have it. You can read this book. That's fine. Morning, sir, they said back to him, slowly bowing as he walked past them, and the twins ran through the gate and caught up with Froggy on the other side. Wait a minute, Connor said with a laugh. You're living with Red? You guys like a couple or something? Froggy turned an even darker green. Oh, well, I suppose so, he said, too bashful to even look them in the eye. I wasn't expecting that, Alex said with raised eyebrows. All right, how the heck did that happen? Connor asked with a confused grin on his face. I mean, you're so worldly, and she's so not. Don't be rude, Connor, Alex said, and she nudged him. No, it's quite all right, Froggy said. It's very simple how it happened. Shortly after I was transformed back into a human by your grandmother, her castle was rebuilt from the fire, and Queen Red invited me over for some tea one afternoon. She wanted to thank me for saving her life during the battle against the evil queen of the Big Bad Wolf Pack. It was only supposed to last an hour or so, but honestly, we ended up talking all day. Well, she talked. I listened, really. But we did connect. And since then, our friendship has taken a more romantic turn. Their mouths hung wide open, not helping Froggy in the slightest. And how does she feel about you being in your frog form again? Alex asked. Well, it really was challenging at first. She was afraid to touch me and she wouldn't let me sit on any of the furniture, but she has come a long way and I know it's for the greater good, even if it does put a pause on our relationship for now, Froggy said. Red's really an exceptional woman. You have to get to know her. Is she still hung up on Jack, though? Connor asked, and Alex gave him a dirty look. The dark green color faded from Froggy's face. We're working on that, he said. I don't think anyone can ever stop loving someone entirely. Sometimes love turns to hate, but I'm not sure it's ever possible to stop feeling for them completely. Despite whatever feelings she has left over for Jack, I have no doubts of her affection for me. Froggy smiled and nodded to himself. Alex and Connor shrugged to each other. Relationships always seemed complicated to them, but they seemed impossible to understand under these circumstances. Does it bother you, though? Alex asked, knowing how much she cared about someone else in the past. Froggy shook his head confidently. I figure Red is willing to accept me flawed and frogged, and then I must do the same thing for her, regardless of what baggage she brings to the relationship, he said. And in time, the longer Jack and Goldilocks are out of the picture, the better it will be for her. Out of sight, out of mind, you know? Uh-huh, Connor said, with a snort, looking at him through the corner of his eye. Whatever happened to Jack and Goldilocks anyway? Has anyone heard from them? Well, very little, actually, Froggy said. Occasionally they'll be spotted on the outskirts of the kingdom, and a villager will alert the castle guards, but honestly they've kept pretty quiet. For mine and Red's sake, I'm really not complaining. The twins were happy to hear that Jack and Goldilocks were still together and still on the run, relieved that at least something had stayed constant while the rest of the world was in chaos. They walked through the rolling hills of the Bo Peep family farms and soon reached the picturesque town at the center of the kingdom. The twins were delighted to see all the dainty cottage homes and brick buildings with pointed hay roofs again. They smiled seeing the Hay Penny Bank, the Shoe Inn, and shops like the Pat a Cake Bakery and Jack Horner's Pie Shop, all in the same place as their last visit. Yeah, it's so nice, huh? Here you go, honey. Yeah, it's a nice book. That's a nice book about dragon friends. Yeah. This isn't exactly a book about dragon friends, but they did talk about dragons in a couple chapters ago, so, you know, there's that. One thing was visibly different, though. The town had once been full of farmers and shepherds hauling their livestock around. It's so empty, Alex said. Remember how crowded the town was last time, Connor said? It was like take your goat to work day or something, if I remember correctly. Froggy let out a sigh. Yes, signs of the times, I'm afraid, he said. It's like this in all the villages in the kingdom. No one leaves their homes unless it's absolutely necessary. And they walked through a park at the center of town, and they were pleased to see that Humpty Dumpty and the little boy who cries wolf memorial and Jack and Jill Hill. The twins couldn't help but look at them a little differently, though, considering the information they'd recently learned from Mother Goose. Whoa, Connor said, looking across the park. Check out the renovations. At the edge of the park, facing the twins, was Red Riding Hood's castle. Well, her new castle. It stood twice as tall and sat twice as wide as the previous one. It had several towers, each higher than the next, and a large dome in the center, and a gigantic clock above the newly built front steps. Alex and Connor both tilted their heads and squinted at the new castle. There was something rather peculiar about it. This looks familiar, doesn't it? Alex said. Yeah, sure does, Connor said. Almost like all the other castles and palaces mixed together, doesn't it? Sure, just wait until you see the inside, Froggy said. Red built me my very own library. It's just splendid. Hundreds and hundreds of books, and they're all mine. Well, that's wonderful, Alex said, sharing his enthusiastic smile. Don't worry, Froggy said. I kept all the books you gave me, too. They have their very own section. He winked at her and Alex grinned. She remembered the books that they'd bonded over the first time that they met. And the trio made their way up the castle's front steps, and two guards opened an impressively large set of red doors for them to enter. You want this, honey? Good morning, sir, the guards said to Froggy, and they bowed like the previous set of guards had. Good morning, gentlemen, Froggy said. Does every guard know you or something? Connor asked him. Yeah, what else? Well, I'm not exactly easy to forget, Froggy said. I don't fit in around here looking like this. I'm just glad the villagers stopped fainting when they see me. Well, most of them stopped anyway. Most of them stop fainting when they see Froggy, honey. Isn't that silly? They took their first steps into the castle, and the twins gasped. There was a marble floor under their feet, golden pillars to the sides, an enormous grand staircase in front of them. And to no one's surprise, every wall was covered in portraits of Queen Red in different glamorized positions. She certainly spared no expense, Connor said, eyeing everything around him, and he looked down at the floor and noticed a tiny basket. Sorry, I lost my place. Basket-shaped tiles connecting the corner of the marble tiles. It sort of reminds me of Cinderella's ballroom, except it's like redified, Alex said. And a short, plump handmaiden was descending the stairs with an empty tea tray. Her cheeks were pink and she was wheezing from the effort. Alex and Connor hid behind Froggy, remembering their last encounter with her, and it hadn't been a pleasant one. Welcome back, Prince Charlie, the handmaiden called out to Froggy. It was strange for the twins to hear him addressed by his real name. The Queen's in the library. I just served her breakfast. Thank you. I'm headed them now, he called back to her. Would you like me to bring you up some lily pad tea? Oh, that would be wonderful, thank you. 3 flies in mine, please. Would you two like any tea? Alex? Connor? Oh, yeah, sure, what the heck, Connor said. It wouldn't be a visit without some lily pad tea. The twins followed Froggy up the stairs, passing the handmaiden who stopped in her tracks and stared at them peculiarly, not being able to exactly recall where she knew them from, but clearly remembering that it hadn't been a good experience. When they reached the top of the stairs, they made a right and traveled down another impeccably decorated hallway, also lined with portraits of Queen Red. They found a pair of golden doors with library, place of books, carved into the wall above it. Connor pointed at the carving to his sister. I bet you anything she put this so she doesn't forget what's inside. He snickered quietly into her ear. All right, here we are, Froggy said, and he pushed open the doors. The twins stepped inside, and they were awestruck once again. It was the most elegant library they had ever seen, beating even the one in Snow White's palace. Tell me more about that. What else? What else? Is that a butterfly? Do you have a butterfly? Wow, so pretty. It's orange and yellow. And delicious, it seems. Yes. Did you know that when butterflies land on you, they're tasting you with their feet? Yeah, it's true. It's kind of creepy, right? You're tasting this one, though, so it seems like turnabout is fair play. Hi. Do you mind if I keep reading? Oh, thank you. I appreciate your approval, as it were. Connor raised his eyebrows. It's so beautiful, Alex said, and she placed a hand over her heart. Yeah, it's not bad, Connor said. Shelves stretched across the tops of very high ceilings with ladders and balconies on various levels. A group of armchairs and sofas was placed at the center of the room near a fireplace with a gigantic wolfskin rug that had apparently been the big bad wolf himself. Do you want to go in your chair for a few minutes so we can finish this chapter? What do you think? Do you want to do that? Do you want to go in your chair? Wow. Oh, okay. There you go. Very nice. Very nice. We'll just finish this chapter, okay, sweetheart? Is that good? And then we'll have breakfast. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? Spread across the floor in front of it, and a beautiful chandelier hung in the center of the room, giving an abundance of light that was perfect for reading. There were many portraits of Queen Red hung around the library, but an especially large painting was hung over the fireplace of Red reading a book in one of those armchairs. The twins had to do a double take because just below the portrait was the real Queen Red Riding Hood seated in the armchair reading a book in the identical position as the one in the portrait. She looked up as soon as she heard the door open and, "You're back!" Red said when she saw Froggy, and she tossed aside the book, which was thin and mostly pictures, and ran to her bow, and they collided in a giant embrace. Queen Red Riding Hood was a beautiful young woman with blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She was always dressed to the nine in red gowns and a hooded cape, but the twins noticed something different about Red. She wasn't wearing nearly as much makeup or jewelry as she had been before. Perhaps her relationship with Froggy had simplified the young queen's need to impress people. Maybe it had, sweetheart. Maybe it had. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? Oh, you're very excited by that. Okay, good. Yeah? Are you so happy? Yeah? A little drooly, though. Just a little drooly. There you go. All better. Froggy tried to kiss her, but Red pulled away. Oh, no. No kisses, remember? Red said, "I love you to death, darling, but I do find you repulsive at the moment. There's nothing worse than cold and clammy kisses." Oh my god, you too! Red's full attention was then diverted to the twins when she spotted them. She stared at them as if Froggy had brought poisonous snakes into the castle. "Red, do you remember Alex and Connor?" Froggy asked. "Remember? How could I forget them?" Red said, not looking away. "Hi, Red," Alex said politely. "Hey, how's it going?" Connor said nicely. "Forgive me, I don't mean to be rude," Red said to the twins. "It's just every time I see you, I'm either heartbroken, kidnapped, or made homeless." The twins couldn't argue with that. Honestly, she was right. "Yeah, no worries," Connor said, and Red eyed them nervously for a minute before saying anything else. So, what brings you back to this world? Like vacation or visiting your grandma or... No, not exactly, Alex said. We were lost in the woods, Connor said. Surprise, surprise. I love you, but I find you repulsive. I know that was a funny line. Hey, Brittany. Yeah, thank goodness we saw Froggy in the forest. Otherwise, who knows where we would have ended up, Alex added. Red glanced back and forth between them and then to Froggy. So, you brought them here? She said through a forced smile. Oh, lovely. They had nowhere else to go, Froggy said. I couldn't let them wander around at a time like this. Red looked back and forth at the twins, still anxious. No, I suppose you couldn't, I guess. The twins tried to break the awkward tension. Hey, you... Okay. Your new castle is beautiful, Alex said. Hey. Hi. 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 Hello. Do you want your llama? Do you want this llama? Go ahead, take it. There you go. I feel so at home at many homes, actually. Oh, wait, sorry. That was not her voice, and I totally did that wrong. I got distracted by your beauty. That's what it was. I feel so at home at many homes, actually, Connor said. Was there a theme that you were going for here? Inspiration, mostly, Red said blankly. Oh, Connor said. Well, it does certainly feel inspired here. And the handmaiden knocked on the door and entered the library carrying tea for Froggy and the twins. Oh, wonderful. Why don't we catch up over some tea? Red said, but her tone didn't match her enthusiastic words. The handmaiden set the tea tray down on the table by the armchairs and left the room. The twins took a seat across from Froggy and Red, and the impromptu tea party began. Froggy held Red's hand lovingly. Is this all right, darling? He asked her. Of course it is, she said. I'm wearing gloves. It was silent for a couple of moments, with only the sounds of their spoons clanking against their teacups to fill the awkward tension in the room. Do you need this? Perhaps? No, not that. Okay, wow. Okay, how about this? Do you want this? Do you want it? 2 hands. Take it with 2 hands. Yeah, you like that ball? Very nice. So, how old are you two now? Red asked. You look like you've, grown a little bit. We're 13, Connor said. Oh, that's nice, Red said. That's how old I was when I was elected queen. Of course, I had Granny to help me. How old is your granny? Alex asked. Retired, actually. Oh, sorry, not how old. How is your granny? Retired, actually, Red said. She lives at the Shoe Inn now, so I've taken over all the responsibilities as queen. How's queenship treating you? Connor asked, and he sipped his lily pad tea, and then he spit it out immediately. Honestly, it's been difficult, Red said. There's much more to being a queen than people realize. It's not all about jewels and fabulous dresses and abundance of affection. There are lots of decisions to be made every day about peasants and farmers and their needs and whatnot. Luckily, I've had Charlie here to help me with it. That's really nice, Alex said. Have you passed any new laws or anything worth mentioning recently? Red looked up at the ceiling, trying to recall what her latest act as queen had been. I raised the taxes, she said happily, but then her smile faded into a frown. But the people didn't like that, so I quickly lowered them. My mistake. I didn't realize they were going to take that so personally. Apparently my kingdom had a strong ecology, so there is no need to anyway. It has a strong economy, dear. A strong economy, Froggy corrected her. Oh, yeah, it has a strong economy. Forgive me, Red said. The jokes aren't going to land if you talk over them, sweetheart. Should we finish it tomorrow? Is that what you're trying to tell Mommy? How much more is left in this? Let's see. Yeah, all right. Well, we did a very good amount today, and we'll read more tomorrow. There's a link right here to buy the Land of Stories. You can get it right there. So we'll finish that chapter tomorrow, but that joke was pretty funny. And I'll read it again tomorrow so it lands better without screamy pants, yeah? Yeah. Well, we read a whole chapter and more. Can you say, yay? Oh, baby class. That's exciting, Stephanie. I'm fine. I mean, I'm excited for you. Can you say, hi? Hi. Hi. Really? Are you hungry? Do you want food? Food. You want food? Okay, we're gonna go make breakfast. We'll see you guys later. Mwah. Hopefully we'll be able to do baby book club later. What do you think? Although Aunt Philomena is coming to visit us, so maybe not. Yeah, we'll upload it for sure. If it doesn't upload by Sunday, somebody poke me on Sunday so I can check on it. Okay, bye guys. Maybe, goodbye.